Good morning. I am alive, alive and alive, just alive. I did get sick, if I'm honest, and I think if you've been watching this, uh, the last 18 months, especially the last month, this have I been paying rebuild? Oh man, like it really took a huge amount of energy, and particularly as we set a go live date. Stefan's here. Stefan knows how much effort it took. We haven't spoken since I got sick either. You can hear that I'm a little bit not right. That was a couple of days ago. But I think it was just like particularly 3 weeks, 3 weeks leading up to, and then the week after, like 3 o'clock every morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, my brain would just be like, have you done this? Have you done that? What about that other thing? What about that bug that Stefan built, that I built? Like there'll be something in there. And my sleep wasn't bad. Like I go to bed and I fall asleep straight away. It's fine. I go to bed early. So maybe I get 6 or 7 hours before the brain starts. But they're just such long days. I know they were for Stefan as well. And I got through to Saturday. So just a day after I did the last video where I was fine. And I was like, maybe that cold Charlotte had is coming my way. And then Sunday, I had a track day with Ari. So we we're out on the racetrack on Sunday, and I was like, my brain doesn't feel as sharp as it probably should. And by Monday, I was like, I need to lay down for a little bit. Anyway, it's not too bad now. I think yesterday was mostly okay, and today's okay too. But it's also rainy outside, which is really unusual for here, and it makes everything feel a bit dreary. Anyway, you all know what it's like. It's just taking the edge off. Be that as it may, what are you doing? Lots of stuff coming up. I just thought I left a very generic thing at the end of this around the have I been pwned to do list. I thought I'd talk about some of the things, and Stefan, we can talk about that stuff that Ingeborg sent through yesterday as well, because resellers are really exciting. I'll read you some of the tickets and things we got overnight just to, I don't know, like process the pain of having to deal with companies selling nothing but just marking it up, but we have to deal with them. Anywho, in more positive news, 2 weeks from right now, in fact, 2 weeks from right now, we'll be about landing in Dubai, on the way over to Europe, where our Alpine Grand Tour is now shaping up really well with the first public event, which is going to be in Zurich. Now, we did have a little bit of a false start with the date here. I'll explain how we do these trips, and then this will make sense. So this is probably the third trip we've done since September where we've gone, there is a part of the world where we would like to go and spend some time because we think that we know that there are lots of different organizations and particularly government agencies and law enforcement groups that we spend time with. Let's just make the commitment. We'll book the time. It's a time that works well with our schedule. And then we'll go, hey, we're coming, who's around? So, g'day to everyone else too. Tony, Daniel, Milford. So we did this in September with the US and Canada, mostly around the FBI and the RCMP, and then it timed in with the One Password President's Cup, and spent time in San Francisco because that's where all the tech folks are. We did that, and then we did it a few months ago with the UK, Ireland, Iceland, as Stefan and I managed to hang out along with Charlotte and Ingeborg, our tame front end developer, while we're doing all the Top Gear themes. Still sick. And they worked out really well. And we decided to do this one around the Alpine regions of Europe because when I looked at where are the governments we have the relationships with, it's like Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, all of these countries in that area, we've got existing relationships with. So, okay, that's good. It's June, which is summer on the wrong side of the world. So that's good. and I like driving. Let's get a fast car, and then we'll go to the autobahns and do all that. And that's the way it started. And the original plan I had, I'll check my map. Original plan I had, I was like, I think part of the reason we got there is it's like, wouldn't it be cool just to go to a bunch of places I've never been before, a bunch of countries I've never been before. And what we're thinking, as I have a look at my map here, is to basically go down like the eastern side of the Adriatic Sea and see like Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, and then get like the ferry from Albania to Italy and then drive there. And, and that would be cool. And you'd see all these new places. And we've got a bunch of relationships with governments there as well. I thought that'd be really, really awesome. And I went a long way down the path of figuring out the road trip, and I found the right car hire company in Munich as well. And then I read the fine print, which you got to do. I mean, most of the time we don't read the fine print, but read the fine print about where you can actually take the car, and it's like none of those places. The problem is, and of course it's all insurance, there's sort of a list of regions. Region 1 is like, Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, France, all of Western Europe. And then region 2, you get into like Croatia. And then region 3, you get into Albania and North Macedonia. And then there's like Russia. It's like you just can't go there at all. But if you get a really nice car, you basically can't go anywhere other than region 1. And I wanted to get an SL63 AMG because we have an SL. No, we don't have an SL. We have an E63 AMG, which I love. And I was trying to figure out like what's like the coolest car I can get where I can still fit our bags. If you're going for 3 weeks, you need bags. And that was the car. And I was like, it's summer in Europe. And I did a trip in 2000 with a convertible Mercedes, a little one compared to this, through that region. And I have very, very nice memories about like just driving through all these like green mountains with the roof down and everything. So I want to do that again, but with a really cool car. So anyway, that's what we ended up with. And we couldn't go to any of those places. So we flipped it and then looked at it the other way and went, okay, yeah, actually we've got all these relationships. I've been to every single one of these countries. We are going through Monaco, Principality, I think, rather than a country. I haven't been to Monaco, but I've been to France a lot. So anyway, where were we? Zurich. So we have an event lined up in Zurich. Oh, that's where we were. As we're trying to piece these things together and you figure out like a rough route, like we did in the US and Canada and like we did in Ireland and Iceland and the UK, you sort of have a broad, Joe was there. G'day, Joe. Joe was in Oxford. You figure out like a broad route and rough times. And when I announced this tour, we had broad scope. And I said to the folks in Zurich who want to do the user group, look, we've got about the 16th or the 17th of June, should be okay. And then I've got about 10 threads with other individuals and governments and things that are the same. And at some point in time, the first thread came back and went, cool, we booked the 17th. And I was like, all right, I was in my brain doing multi-threaded stuff and probably being rushed with having been pain and sick too. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, that sounds fine. And then the people that I announced it, the Azure user group, 17th of June. And then the people were meant to be seeing at CERN in Geneva on the 17th of June. They're like, are you sure? So, crap, okay. So, long story short, we are still doing the Zurich event. It is a day earlier. So we are doing the Azure user group. Azure? Monaco? Anyway, we're doing that on the 16th of June in Zurich. Definitely locked in, clear. Change your venue, change your date from when I originally announced it. We're doing that. There's one in Rome that we're just trying to finalize as well. But we should have a public event there in Rome. I think they're going to be the only public events and all the other ones are going to be government meetups. And I'm kind of okay with that. I think like two decent sized user groups events, particularly in the Microsoft Azure space, I'll be quite happy with. Anyway, if you're in Zurich, that meetup is already up there. It's on my website. And as soon as we can get the Rome one locked in, I'll share that as well. Cool. All right. Now on to what was actually on my list. Oh, that was actually on my list. That was the first thing, wasn't it? Data breaches. Speaking of being in France, the FFR data breach. Now, this was, I like a data breach, which sounds bad already, doesn't it? I like a data breach where it is already publicly disclosed. The organization knows about it. I don't need to go through the drama of disclosure. I was just thinking today, I feel like it's been weeks and weeks since I've had to send a disclosure notice to an organization and go, hey, I've got your data. So it's quite good that I haven't had to do that. In fact, I just missed a really, really big one from the list I've got to talk about. I'll edit that back into the image later. FFR, Fédération Française de Rugby, 282,000 email addresses from June 2023. Also included names, dates of birth, because apparently you need that to be interested in rugby. Why are you keeping date of birth? Phone number, 69% of those already in have been pwned. So look, I mean, that was a bit of a no-brainer. Like that was one that was out there already. And again, it was out there in the public domain in terms of discussion about it. Unfortunately, the data also appears to be in the public domain. And that was the first of two different French breaches that went in the last week. Let's do the other French one, then we'll come back to Operation Endgame, because that's a bit different. So the other French one has also been in the news for quite some time. So again, save me all the verification or disclosure rather drama. Still did verification. I'll tell you how I did that in a moment. French ISP called Free. Now, incidentally, loading a data breach into Have I Been Pwned called Free has created all sorts of confusion, because there's inevitably been tickets where people are like, hi, I just went to like query the free data breach and my domain's got a gazillion people on it and it says I need a subscription. What gives? Like, oh yeah, oh no, they called the thing free. Anyway. So anyway, they were breached in October. And this is one of these ones where people have been pinging me about this for a long time. It's like, hey, I've got 100,000 record sample, or hey, I'm trying to get this from someone, or hey, I've got this, but I can't give it. Oh, all of these weird things happen in the data breach trading, exchanging ecosystem. But it did turn up eventually, 14 million email addresses, along with name, physical address, gender, date of birth, and for many records, I think it was about 5-something million records, IBAN, the international bank account number. Now, it kind of sounds worse than apparently what it is. So, not using IBANs here in Australia, I think. The question is, if you have an IBAN, what can you do with it? Now, Free, the company Free, says apparently you can't do anything with the IBAN itself in terms of like taking money out of it. Now, maybe it's the way you put money in there, or maybe it's some sort of identity verification thing, which is then a different problem again. If anyone knows, like, why would they collect IBAN if you can't really do anything with IBAN? Like, what's the point of it? I'm kind of interested. Anyway, 59% of those email addresses were already in Have I Been Pwned. Second French data breach, which means we've heard lots of tickets this week in French. Now, for those of you that have been to France before, and incidentally, when we're back in France, or when we're on this trip, we will be back in France. CERN, fun fact. We were at CERN in 2019, home of the Large Hadron Collider, home of the birthplace of the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee sat in CERN and wrote the spec for the web. When you're in CERN and you're traveling around, you go between France and Switzerland, which is kind of cool because you're there on this one premise. And in fact, if you've ever seen the map of the Hadron Collider, I think it's like a 22 kilometer diameter or something tube. It goes in the mountains between France and Switzerland. So you're in CERN, you keep going in between France and Switzerland. As I look at the map here, you can see that Geneva is really sort of tucked away just next to the lake here in the corner of Switzerland, right on the border of France. Regardless, we will be in Lyon doing a governmenty thing and having a night in Annecy, which I probably spelt wrong, and also a night in Gourdes. So yeah, bit of French. So good timing with two French data breaches, I guess. And we've been receiving all the tickets in France or in French. And I got onto this subject because something about France that remains very, very French. Like we spend a lot of time in Norway. And they're very happy doing everything in English. Or the Netherlands, happy doing everything in English. France, not so much. It's fun and interesting. We run this entire system in English, and they're just like, here you go, French tickets. Which, of course, we can figure out very easily because we just Google Translate, which they could have done too before they put it into the English system. Doesn't matter. Let's talk about Operation Endgame, because that one's more interesting. Now, this is Endgame 2. Oh, Joe says Annecy is such a beautiful place. It's twinned with my hometown. There you go. Annecy was one of those ones where, as we were figuring out this route, and we had a rough area of, we're going to be in like the southeast of France, I'd go into ChatGPT and I'd go, what's the most awesome place in the southeast of France? And Annecy was one of the ones that came up. And the pictures look really, really pretty. So a bunch of places, including Annecy, including Gordes, we've got including Zürich and Liechtenstein, we've only got one night in each of these places. So we've got limited time to go and see what's awesome. Monaco, we actually have 3 nights. So that's going to be a bit more of a catch our breath before on to the next thing. Rome, we've got 3 nights as well. Operation Endgame. Now, there was an Operation Endgame last year, which was a law enforcement coalition, mostly under Europol is my understanding, although there is certainly an FBI logo on there as well, taking down botnet infrastructure. Now, that happened last year. We got a bunch of data for Operation Endgame, which went into Have I Been Pwned, made it searchable for people. Looking at the overview from Europol here on Operation Endgame. Operation Endgame strikes again. The ransomware kill chain broken at its source. And they go on here to talk about the fact that Endgame has targeted a bunch of different malware strains. Bumblebee, sick coffee, hang on. Bumblebee, Lactrodectus, Quackbot, Hijack Loader, Danabot, Trickbot, Warm Cookie. These variants are commonly offered as a service. Everything's as a service these days to other cyber criminals and are used to pave the way for large-scale ransomware attacks. So inevitably, these are malware strains where once they have a foothold in an infected machine, are a delivery mechanism for ransomware. You've got to commoditize your malware some way. So the belief here from authorities that this will have a very notable impact on ransomware, hence the ransomware kill chain nomenclature that's been used here. We got sent 40-something million passwords from this effort, which have all gone into Have I Been Pwned. So the 13 billion, I think we're actually to 14 billion now. I can't forget, jeez. We have a lot of billions. All of those requests now query this data as well, which is great. They also sent through, what was the exact number here? 15.4 million email addresses from that corpus. 83% of those are already in Have I Been Pwned. So inevitably, these are the sorts of folks who'd been infected with malware or their email address has been siphoned up by the malware and they're now searchable in the service. I'm just pausing because I've realized that since loading this 6 days ago, it was Saturday morning our time, we haven't actually had any queries saying, how did this get onto my machine? Where did my data come? I'm actually surprised by that. Because normally when it comes, it's different if it's like the Dropbox data breach. How did I get in there? Well, you had a Dropbox account. When you're in a law enforcement takedown and it's related to malware, people do often have questions. Anyway, so all that went in very, very smoothly, evidently by the fact that I didn't even hear any questions from people, which is good. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's about that on that. We're happy with that one. Good result. We sent, incidentally, I was giving our connection came through via the Dutch police. I was giving the folks there some stats the other day. We sent well over 40,000 emails to impacted either individuals or folks monitoring domains. It was a fairly even split, 20,000 something on each. So that makes Have I Been Pwned a pretty cool resource where folks who've already opted in for communication about this stuff, we can reach tens of thousands in one go, which is neat. I was happy about that. G'day, Christopher. Welcome. Next one. What else was on the list here today? The Have I Been Pwned to-do list, including Turnstile tweaks. Let's maybe start with Turnstile because I finished with Turnstile last week. And in fact, I think I had just posted the poll about Turnstile. Now, as a quick recap, Turnstile is Cloudflare's anti-automation service. It's like Google reCAPTCHA, but not bad. Like I think that'd be supportive of that description. It's not bad in terms of tracking or sending your things off to a massive data aggregator. It's not bad in terms of having to just scratch your eyeballs out trying to answer complex, weird things on the screen. I gave the example last week of one that Microsoft was showing, and it was nightmarishly bad. So it's meant to be seamless, and there's these three models. There is the interactive capture. You would have seen this before. It pops up little Cloudflare banners, probably 100 pixels wide, 20 high, something like that. Little Cloudflare logo, checkbox, check here, spins around, goes, yeah, cool, you're not a robot, go for it. There is the, I think they call it the managed one, which still sits there. You can still see it. It still spins around in the browser, but it's not interactive. Both of those are a little bit of a blight on the eye, so to speak. And then there's the one that we've been using for a long period of time, and we are now using we're using it for a long period of time just behind the front page search box. We're now using it for everything that we want to prevent automation on, which is the invisible one. And as the name suggests, you can't see it. It runs in the background. And as soon as you load a page with the invisible reCAPTCHA, we'll do this on the front page of Have I Been Pwned. If we F12 into the dev tools here, what have I done? Function lock. Function, come on. It's opening settings. Function. There we go. And we go to Have I Been Pwned. And what you'll see in your dev tools is somewhere down here. If we filter down and we filter for Turnstile, there's a GET request to Turnstile v0 API JS, and then there's a GET request to another resource here, and then there's a GET request to a challenge platform. And effectively what's happening is Cloudflare serves up a little piece of JavaScript, runs some secret Cloudflare magic source in your browser, which they're not meant to tell you about because it's, well, if everyone knew how it worked, it would be, it would be obvious problems. Of course, people reverse engineer this stuff to an extent. But Cloudflare has visibility well beyond that one request they serve up to you because they're serving a massive portion of the world's traffic. So they're looking at the behavior of your IP address, your browser, your JA4 tag, your ASN, your history, all sorts of different things. And they're using all of this to try and figure out whether you're a good human or not. All right, just a human or not. Now, if we have a look at the console after loading Have I Been Pwned, we can see there's a little console message here, request for the private access token challenge. So it serves this script. It issues a challenge. The challenge then comes back in a response, which we then pass off to whatever API it is that we want protected from anti-automation. So if I then put in a bit of, in my network requests here, I put in a bit of test at example.com, and I'll stop filtering by Turnstile, and instead I will search by unified because that's the endpoint that we hit. And I say check, a GET request goes off to the unified search path. And if I have a look at the headers for that, within our request headers, somewhere down here, we have a CF Turnstile response request header. We're sending the response from their Turnstile request with our request. That goes off. Our server-side code then sends it to Cloudflare to validate that that token hasn't been used before and it is valid and someone has passed the not a robot test. And if that's okay, it serves the response. If it thinks you're a robot, it returns 401. And what we do on that front page of the website is if we get 401 back, we go, all right, well, this person couldn't pass the anti-robot test. Let's do a full page post back, and then you get the interactive challenge, which is the Cloudflare one you got to check on. So we've got an immediate fallback position, which is a slight degradation of the entire user experience. Other places on the website, such as where you sign into your dashboard, we do not have a fallback position. But what we do have that we don't have on the front page is we have a message which says, hey, look, you didn't pass the anti-automation controls. maybe behave more like a human, having a bit of fun with it, and click the sign in button again and you'll be okay. Now, the problem we got is we keep getting this feedback from people going, look, I keep getting this message, either the first time or on subsequent clicks. And we've got sort of two parallel threads here where we're speaking to the folks at Cloudflare. We'll tell you how that's going in a sec. And we're trying to quantify it. So I put a poll out a week ago. I think I spoke about the poll in the last video. And long story short, about 10% of people are not getting past that challenge, which continues to come back and says you're not a human. Now, that's a real problem. Less of a problem on the front page because we can fall back to the post and the manual verification. More of a problem signing into your dashboard because it's all we've got. Now, having said that, so long as you can enter the email address into any client and pass the challenge, it doesn't have to be this browser. You can pick up your phone and do it there. Then you can click on the link in your browser of choice or platform of choice and get through to your dashboard. It's just that initial send me effectively the OTP to my email address. So we've got about a 10% rate of false positives as best we know it. Now, I've been chatting to the Cloudflare folks and Stefan has been speaking to them in person. It seems like one of our issues may be related to their challenge process not completing properly before the sign-in button is clicked. And Stefan, tell me if I get any of this wrong, mate. I'm still sick. So that seems to be part of the problem. Now, of course, we can do things like not enable the sign-in button until that happens. Or I was thinking this morning, mate, what we could do is if you start the sign-in, you fill in your email address, click enter or click the button. If the challenge hasn't finished, we could always just sit there and think for how long do we give it before we think the UX sucks? 3 seconds for argument's sake. And then always come back and go, look, give it another go or something interactive. I don't know. So I think we have some ways of falling back there. It certainly seems like if we do the more UX, Stefan says bang on with my description there, that's good. If we do the more abrasive UX options of having the managed or interactive challenge, that sounds like we're going to have a higher success rate on that. I do wonder, Stefan, if we should just, I'm in two minds between whether we try and improve this one first or whether we just go straight to the UX blight on your eyes ones on things like the dashboard sign-in, because that sounds like that will well and truly solve our problem. But, the more I think about it as well, I'm just not sure, even though we're seeing that 10%, like I'm not seeing, for example, people logging tickets saying, hey, I have a subscription and I can't get in and see it because I just can't get past that challenge. So let's, it's been a day off in Iceland as well as the Netherlands, apparently. What's happening over there? Stefan will know. It's apparently Thursday was a day off. So we didn't do much yesterday, whenever it is. But maybe a Friday, we just think, how do we do that? Anyway, if anyone's got any ideas. Christopher says, I've just recently deployed Turnstile on all my sites and for work sites behind CF that were using Capture before. I've seen a significant reduction in spam from the more popular sites at work. Oh, good job, it's working. What I will say as well with Cloudflare, look, all of these anti-automation things by design create some friction. If there was no friction, they just wouldn't work. The bots would blast through. That's their design. And whether you're doing that weird Microsoft one I spoke about like last week, where you got to rotate the theater and move the head, it's just an absolute nightmare. Or whether you're doing invisible recapture, there's a whole spectrum of how much friction is created. I think honestly, what's a really important part of all of this is how the organization implementing it, it's almost like where their moral compass sits. So Google, we know, is just a massive data aggregator. I don't feel great about that. Cloudflare's got a very, very clearly defined purpose for what they do, and it's not sucking up people's data. And also how those teams interact. And the Cloudflare teams have always been super, super responsive. They see me talking about stuff. I've had not just the folks we spoke to, Stefan, but other people from Cloudflare reach out and go, hey, can we help with this? Making time to chat, sort it out. Emails with tech teams and not just everything through a ticketing system. All of that's been really good. So we're with the right people and we'll find the right solution. I'm confident of that. Now, Stefan says, that's pretty much what I was thinking. Okay, well, my ideas here. When speaking to Cloudflare, we can first the waiting, then let's see what the fallout is after that. Yeah, let's do that. And I think the more metrics we capture with App Insights as well, so we know. Look, if we can measure, then at least we can see how we improve. So tomorrow I'll try implementing waiting for the challenge to finish before sending off the request without blocking the button in the background with a timeout, of course. Yeah. So from the user perspective, it will look just the same. It might just take a fraction longer because you're actually artificially waiting in the background if Turnstile hasn't responded. I like that. That sounds good. And Stefan says the metrics are coming. Oh, I think there's some water here. Christopher says vastly different audience here in terms of users, but we did the same approach. If people can't get access post-change, I'd log a help desk ticket for people we are actually after anyway. Okay, all right. So stay tuned for that one. We'll see how that pans out. Now, the next stuff on the Have I Been Pwned to-do list. A lot of the work that we've been doing these last, especially the last few weeks, but really we started on this in anger, so to speak, October, November, I'd say. A lot of it has been to create a platform on which we can then build other things to make the experience better for people and also allow us to build and scale. And one of the things that just hasn't been scaling for us is not really about the technology. It's more about the process of dealing with customers. These damn customers. So there's a couple of things here which have been sucking our time and now we're going to start to build interfaces into. One of them has been, we have lots of customers who say, I'd like a quote. Now this drives me nuts. I'm going to pick up some tickets here that literally come in overnight, just as examples. Let's get the one password login into the Zendesk. Okay. So, quotes. Now, when people ask for a quote, caveating this with, yes, I have spent a lot of time in a large enterprise. I spent 14 years in Pfizer doing very formal things every time I needed to buy software. So I understand what it means to be the tech person trying to get their job done and being burdened by corporate procurement policy. But what people are asking for with a quote is they're saying, you have a product, it's listed on the website, it has a price, it explains what you get, it has all the terms and conditions. Can you please take that and put it in a PDF and put our name on it and send it to us? Thank you, have a nice day. And like, that's basically what a quote is. That is it. That's the whole point of the quote. I'll pick an example without naming everyone. Anyone. All right. Here's a good example. This one here. Have I been pwned license quote? Hi, HIBP team. I hope you're well. I'm reaching out to request an official quote in bold for commercial use of the Have I Been Pwned service. We're looking to integrate Have I Been Pwned into our security operations to detect credential exposures and strengthen our threat intelligence capabilities. Could you please provide formal pricing details? It's on the website, mate. Including licensing, also on the website, API access limits on the website, and available support tiers on the website. We'd appreciate if you could send the quote on a company letterhead or as a formal PDF. File, print, save to PDF. As we will need it for internal procurement purposes, happy to provide further details, blah, 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 or set up a call. Now, just recapping. We're a small team, and 2/3 of the entire team are on this live stream right now. it's just Stefan and I and Charlotte. Like, this is it. I see Stefan already going, where's Scott here for the research? Scott Helm, yeah, he has to deal with this the whole time as well for Report Your Eye. It's a nightmare. So we are not in a position, definitely not in a position to go having phone calls because somebody wants to buy something, which is really a self-service credit card on the website. So we'll go through the process of what this means. So the first thing that happens is I delete the notification email from my inbox and I leave it to Charlotte. Now she has to go back, and she's got templates for all this stuff. And she goes back and I can see her reply in here. Here's the template. This is the process. What subscription size do you need? Because someone's asking for a quote. You've got to tell us what freaking product you want. How would you find the products? HaveIBeenPwned.com. And she said to go back to him and then send him this long email with all these options. And then he'll read that. And then he'll speak to his procurement department. And then he'll come back and I'll delete another email from my inbox, possibly. Depends if he replies the same tick or not. And eventually, Charlotte will go into Stripe and she'll create the customer. She'll put all the details in. Actually, she doesn't quite do this, but this is what effectively happens. I'll explain why she doesn't do it. Let's say she goes into Stripe, fills in all the details, creates the quote, and then gets it as a PDF, and then attaches it back to this ticket, sends it back to that company, and then there'll probably be some more back and forth. What she actually does is, I want to say about 9 months ago, in anticipation of automating all this, I created a console app. And she runs this little console app and she puts everything in because I wanted to create all the APIs and all the logic and everything to get this right so that we could then put it behind a self-service portal somewhere. So she's actually doing all this in a console app and it calls into Stripe APIs and creates all this, which is good. But anyway, the whole point is, this is one of the biggest things that we now want to automate away. And we already have the mock-up interface, which Ingeborg did. So we have a quote interface. So one of the next things to work on, and I really think, Stefan, this will probably be a next week thing, is we want to build the interface for people to create quotes. Now that's, in some ways, very simple. I mean, a quote really is just a price with the company's name and our letterhead on it. In other ways, it's a little bit more complex and there's lots of different nuances. And it's everything from, well, how long is a quote valid for? We can't just leave it open-ended. What happens if you then want to accept that quote? Do we actually turn that quote into an invoice, or do we invalidate the quote, or does it matter? So we've got to go through all those little nuances, but we will automate this away and try and get those quote tickets as close to zero as possible. We'll never get to zero because people ask for weird things. And they might still ask for, we'd like to have a phone call or something, but at least then we can have an automated response, or rather a macro response where Charlotte will see it, she'll go, find the macro. No, we don't talk to people. And just send that back. So this is going to be one of the first things that we do now that we have a platform for it. And that's important because we can do things like, well, we've already got the way of verifying email address and effectively signing you in and giving you a dashboard. We've already got a business section in there. We can go through and just add a line item or add a nav item, call it quotes. You go in there, you create the quote, you're good to go. So that'll be one of the first things. Now, that will be quotes for entities that want to create it to then purchase directly, which you can only do by credit card because Stripe and banking rules and whatever else. I'll give you another example of the next thing I'm going to do, and this is supporting resellers. Now, even this week, I spent way too much time undoing the mess we got into due to the fact that we've got one entity purchasing on behalf of another entity who may already be a customer and already has domain searches and things attached. They may have used a different reseller before, but now they're using this reseller. And in my moment of frustration and sickness, I did say to Charlotte, I'm very tempted to go into that blog post I've already written about getting rid of resellers and just clicking the submit button now and burning them to the ground. I'm so frustrated with the mucking around because a company doesn't want to just put a credit card in and buy the thing directly. And we have to wear all of the burden for that. But I think we'll be able to do this in terms of automating a lot of it away. Yesterday, I think probably 24 hours, just under 24 hours ago, wasn't it, Stefan? Ingeborg submitted all of the interfaces, which is still in the public preview.haveibeenpwned, actually. I don't think I've merged the changes. It will be in a moment. All of the changes in there to build a reseller portal. And I feel like what we'll do, Stefan, is we'll get that quote thing done first, because we've got to do quotes anyway with resellers. And at least quotes is a fairly small, finite piece of work. But then we'll do this reseller portal. Now I'm going to pick another ticket here, just as an example of the sorts of things that come through from resellers. I was reading one this morning. It bugged me for some reason. Let me find out why it bugged me. I think it was something to do with the quote, wasn't it? They're just asking a lot of, no, I will say it the way I was thinking it, dumb shit. It will be in my deleted emails. That's probably the easiest one to read. And here, I remember I was reading it to Charlotte. It's like, they're just asking all this stuff, which is on the website. Boy, oh boy, deleted a lot of tickets lately. Is that one? That's not that one. That's request rate. Why is someone asking for a daily rate limit? Like, do it by minute. We have it there. Oh, here we go. This is the one I was after. No, this one. Yeah. Oh, no, actually, this was a different one. I'll read this one anyway. This is the sort of stuff like multiple times every day we have to deal with. So this person is like, obviously not going to say who it is or where they're from. To begin the renewal process, so they already have a subscription. They know what it is. To begin the renewal process on our side, I would like to request a few items that I believe will help us complete the purchase in timeliest fashion. Take a deep breath. Are you able to send us an itemized quote for this year's renewal? I've attached last year's quote for reference. All right, well then we just had that discussion. Can you please provide your most recent privacy policy in terms of use? Where would you find the privacy policy in terms of use if you were... If our agreement needs to be extended, we will draft an amendment to extend the date of it. Well, no, that's not how it works. Like if you want to, imagine you go to Netflix, you're like, hey, Netflix, I'd really like to extend my subscription. We're going to send you some amendments to the terms. You know what Netflix will say? Nothing, just be crickets. This is what we are. It is a service, or you're purchasing a prepackaged service. It's all there. All the instructions are on the box. Please provide the email address where you would like the PO to be sent. You just sent us an email. Can I get a copy of your current W-9, which is the wrong form anyway, because that's for, I believe that's for US entities. We need a W-8 Ben-E. This is obviously an American company because you're a foreign entity. But again, that's on the knowledge base. Are you able to send us a currently dated certificate of insurance in relation to products? No, there's KBs about this. Our risk management department requires an updated certificate of insurance. No, if the quote cannot be made referencing accepted, look, mate, this is not how it works. This is not a negotiation. You literally walk in Netflix, pulling all the things off the shelf and asking people to change it around. Yes, this is what it is. If you like, you can log on and use it, and if you don't, don't. That wasn't even the reseller one. Where's the reseller ones? You're so passionate about this. Well, perfect example, one of the major resellers we deal with here. You know, there's a ticket here. Hi team, customer needs their pricing from this purchase order resent. Why do you want it resent? Don't you have the last one? Can you send it or forward it to me? In fact, if I filter by this particular reseller, and we just go through the sorts of stuff that's asked for here. And again, I raised this because this is like the next frontier. It's boring for us. This is not fun sitting there writing like vendor code. Although I will argue that writing Stripe API code, or rather consuming Stripe APIs, is fun. I actually quite like that. I think they've done a beautiful API. Hello, have I been phone? Your company confirmed receipt of the order below. However, it is still open in our system. Has it been processed? If so, like all of this is online, mate. What are you doing? Yeah, another one. Please confirm that your process. By the way, all of these are just within the last 24 hours, pretty much. Please confirm that you'll process the attached order. I'd appreciate any confirmation or any tracking numbers you can provide. What do you think we're going to? Are we going to like mail you the API key, mate? And then they send everything as a PDF. And then they give us a link to Adobe to download the PDF, literally to adobe.com, not even a path. Yeah, and it's all the same sort of stuff. So we just want to make it go away. And I think the two ways of making it go away would either just ban the resellers altogether, trigger finger is still itchy on that, or automate it. So, Stefan, we're going to be living this, I think, in the next couple of weeks, mate. Just pushing it all back into the automated system. I'll read some comments here. Mary Ellen is excited. Caught you live. Haven't missed an episode and replay every year. How long have I been doing this? Must be about 8 years now. Well, I can figure it out. Yeah, it must be about 8 years because we're up to what, 454. There we go. James, you might actually try that with Netflix because he doesn't like the terms of service. Yeah, and I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. And to be clear, and we do say this on the pricing page, we have an enterprise channel. The likes of 1Password use it to integrate into their password management. Mozilla uses it for Firefox Monitor. A bunch of others use it. We give it for free to governments. But all the commercial ones, we do then go through the process of modifying terms and conditions, or at least having a discussion about which ones we're willing to do, or doing invoices and doing EFT payments and doing payment terms that are longer than 0 seconds, which is what our current payment terms are. You don't get any service until you pay the money, just like Netflix. Even your free trial requires a credit card. Scott's here. You timed it well, mate. We're just ranting about resellers and quotes. So people have an option. Like if you want to go down that path, you can do that, but you're going to pay for it because it sucks our time. The really, really cool thing about having a service like Have I Been Pwned, where you can self-provision API keys, you can do everything you need to in the browser yourself, you can purchase your subscriptions with a credit card online, is were it not for the manual requests, it would scale infinitely. We could have 100 times more people using that service and we wouldn't even notice. It's only the support stuff. So we have to find ways of taking everything that comes through in a support ticket and automating it away. And if it gets out of whack, we've got to either stop providing that particular thing or again, just figure out how to make it go away. Like we can't be getting up every morning and having dozens and dozens of requests, which is particularly the case after a large incident, for stuff that could be automated away. You know, there's always going to be some stuff where it's reasonable and legitimate. But even when I look at the wall over here, you know, I've got someone sending me data breach stuff. Okay, fine, reasonable and legitimate. Like I need to manually look at that. But the number of times, and I've had, I think, like 3 of these since last night. The title of that one over there is Business Inquiry in Partnership. Now, one of these was from a big company that we all know. Another was from a large healthcare provider. Another was, I don't even know what the other one was. But they're all like, hi, we're interested in partnering with you. Okay. There's a website. It explains everything that we do. If you think there's something missing, you can ask us a specific question, but it's pretty much that open. It's like we're looking at ways of working together. Sounding curmudgeon-y now. Anyway. So there's some of the main things. What are the other bits and pieces we're working through, Stefan? There's just been like lots of little refinement bits, things that you wouldn't have noticed, hopefully would have noticed. So things like, for the longest time, let's go back even years, you would access your domain search dashboard. You go and you put your email address in, you get an email, that sends a token. You click the link, it takes you to the dashboard. That token was in the URL. And then as you did domain searches, it persisted that token in the URL such that you went from the web app through to a function app. Serverless, scale to the moon, Azure magic. And tokens in URLs are not great for all sorts of reasons. So we rolled to cookie auth. So when we launched this new website, you still get sent the token, you click the magic link, but then you get a cookie. So as you click around, we're not persisting anything in the URL. It's just the cookie that goes with each request. But that wasn't being passed to api.haveibeenpwned.com, and that is a separate app. And the way the cookies are encrypted and issued, two separate apps, we were still using the token in the background. And as of, I think, yesterday, probably 24 hours ago, was it, Stefan? We no longer do that. So now it's cookies from top to bottom, and we only use that token as a means of verifying that the email got sent to the right place. So we're sort of just refining little things like that. That takes out some, I guess, some cruft from the way we were doing the functions API to do domain searches. So that's improved that area, done a bunch of little TypeScript improvements. So we're using TypeScript to generate all of our JavaScript that goes onto the website. Stefan made some improvements in our deployment process yesterday. I think it's just like loads and loads and loads of little bits and pieces. Stefan says, yeah, the cookie auth. So good to get that out of the way. Lots of little things to think about to get it working correctly. Lots of other bits and pieces we want to do. One of the next things that we'll have, we've spoken before about having partners. So 1Password's been on there for many, many, many years. And I wrote recently about finding partners to do things like identity theft protection. And they will be geo-specific. I used TrueU as an example of an Aussie identity theft protection service. There's no point showing that to anyone else, anywhere else in the world. Now, equally, when I was with the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK, they said, hey, it might be cool to get our logo on the breach page for people from the UK. And then we can show them our NCSC logo, link them to locally specific information, which is largely going to be the same as everywhere else. But when it's issued by the British government and you're a Brit there seeing that, you're like, I know those guys. Like, this is familiar to me. This is going to stick more than if it's some cybersecurity company giving guidance. In both those cases, we need to start giving different responses to different people in different parts of the world. Now, that's not too hard because we can look at IP addresses. We will figure out how to resolve that to a country. I'm not sure if we can even pick that up directly from Cloudflare, Stefan. We'll find a way of doing that. But that then also changed our caching model. So we can't now just cache, let's say the that French free breach, not the free one, but the free mobile. We can't just cache that and give everybody the same page. We're going to have a cached version which is specific to the UK, and a cached version which is specific to Australia, and then a cached version which is specific to absolutely everywhere else. So we're going to have a cache key, I would imagine, which is country specific. Stefan's back on the cookie still. Since it's over browser fetch, so cause, cookie encryption, decryption between different apps, same site and domain attributes in the cookies, etc. More complex than it sounds, but .NET made it easier. Yeah, like we have all of these native protections built into the way we flag attributes on cookies in order to stop bad things from happening, which you then need to think about in order to make good things to happen as well. So anyway, the caching stuff and the geo-specific stuff, that's pretty imminent. In fact, I think today I'll try and contact the NCSC and say, look, do you have a logo and a page? And that could be a good place to start because that's obviously not a commercial thing. It's a freebie before we actually get some sponsors on there who then are paying some money for their product to appear. What else we got on the list, Steph? Now, even if I look back at just our private repo here, about our recent PRs, there's been a lot of little stuff as well from both of us. A lot of little things like wording tweaks as well. A lot of your recent stuff here has all been around the cookie stuff we're just mentioning there. We're still finding little bugs as well. So someone sent me a support ticket yesterday, and they said, I only use plain text email. The plain text email version of your sign-in notification, we append information about the IP address that initiated the action. So do you ever get one of those, you'll get an automated email from a system and you're like, some has gone and put my email address into that website. So we always put information about the requesting IP address and the requesting browser. And it turns out that the plain text one hadn't put a line return before that IP info. So we had the sign-in page, the end of the message ended with a hyperlink, and right at the end of the hyperlink, without even a space, was then information about the sign-in IP address. And the guy was like, hey, look, you don't have a line return there. So I was like, okay, there's a little fix, minor thing, but these are the little things that we have to keep cleaning up. I mean, Stefan's got a commit here. It's literally called TypeScript cleanups. That sort of stuff. We are surfacing a little bit more information on the breach page about things like, is it a stealer log? Is it malware? Is it flagged as sensitive? So on and so forth. Stefan, I didn't tell you this one, but in that FFR data breach, I noticed in my research that they did have an official disclosure statement, which some, but certainly not all companies have after a data breach. And I thought, we should be capturing that. So I have actually added a column, which is like official disclosure URL. We'll start capturing that information. Ideally, someone will go back and find all the official disclosure notices for the 800 something data breaches that are already in there. And then we'll add that to the breach page because that makes sense having that. So I'll try and do that. We found just little buggy things like, I don't think I told you this, Stefan, and this is actually a you thing. This is your bug. You found enough of mine. When you on the pricing page and you change from annual to monthly pricing, it's all just client side, and it toggles the prices, and it toggles the word monthly and annual, and it toggles the links to effectively to the Stripe dashboard to make the purchase. And unfortunately, when you toggled the ultra tiers down the bottom, those links weren't toggling. And that was due to the way the selector was working in JavaScript and the classes it was looking for and the nesting that it expected the elements to be in. So tiny things like that, we will still be finding forever. I mean, geez, people have found not necessarily bugs, but like wording glitches or grammar problems or things like that, that I've had there for almost a decade at times. Stefan says, was it different markup? Yeah, it was different nesting of elements. I'll send this to you on Slack just in case you're really interested. So where was this exactly? This was PR 246, where I changed 2 files. So just talk amongst yourself for a second, folks. Here we go. All right. I just put it there in our Slack channel. It's pretty minor, and I end up just doing it differently, just putting like literally ID attributes on elements rather than trying to use CSS selectors, and it just made it easier. So anyway, that's fixed, it works now. So just loads and loads of like little cleanup stuff, little optimization stuff, and that's before even doing the really big stuff around quotes, and especially that whole sort of reseller portal. So look, I mean, that's what's on our list. We're going to be going with this stuff for, you know, like there's not an end. We're never going to get to a point where we go, oh, I'm glad all that's done and I can just leave HIBP where it is. And of course, in the background of all that, we still actually need to be processing data breaches, of which we've done 3 reasonably significant ones this week. We're going through all of the proposals we've had from vendors who want to have the product placement. So over the coming weeks, we'll have to make some decisions on that. And we've got the Grand Alpine Tour coming up. So we have all of this to do. So speaking of which, I think I'm going to wrap that up there. That's been a lot of stuff. I feel like I need to have like one more, maybe quite relaxing day to overcome things. And we should be better. Now, just look at the last comments here. Tony says, for the official breach disclosure, will you link to the company's sites or the Wayback Machine for when they redesign their site and break the link? My inclination is to link directly to the disclosure. If it disappears at some point, we can always add a Wayback link later on as well. So we have the option. But hey, Tony, if you feel like going and finding disclosure statements for any, not just 800 plus breaches, but any, I'd love to start getting them in there. Bilford says, I was reverse shelled by some surfers from Ballina. Now I'm basically a massive beacon spraying out surf report logs. I cannot stop them. All right, well, okay, on that note, let's wrap it up there. Come back to you next week. Next week, we will be still here next week, and I think I'm going to do one just a day earlier, the week after that, before we head off to Europe, so I get a little bit of a head start. All right, folks, catch you next time.